Ask the
Ask the
oracle.
oracles.
And wow, so what a week last week. Love from the whole world to both of you on Zane and on everything.
We feel it. We feel it.
Thank you, Jeff.
People are so kind, and it really is healing to connect with people that understand and love their pets so much. Not that we called Zane a pet.
No, oh my God, never, not once. There'd be hell to pay. The thing that it really comforted us to know that Zane was sort of a part of a lot of people's extended family. I know it sounds stupid that we didn't know it.
I think from your stories and all the beautiful photographs that you took of him.
Yeah, well, I only had two superstitions in life. One is a road I won't go down because of bad things that have happened on it to me and other people. And the other thing is I wouldn't write the book about Zane, which I've had it ready to go for a long time. I haven't even started writing it, but because I thought he'd die if I wrote it. So but now I realize it's wise to do it now because it'll help me heal. So tune in tomorrow.
Well, also, those of you who have accounts on rally.io, you can make charitable donations using Zane Coin. When you share some love with Zane, you can.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, we'll convert it into money and give it to a local charity.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
So we're talking about growth from change today.
Yeah, and we
change that leads to growth, right?
Right, and we have as our guest
Diane
somebody
Ferraro.
who's pretty cool to start off with, but in terms of change and growth, I mean, you knock us out of the park. You're like the Babe Ruth of change and growth.
That's why, Diane, I thought that would be a good subject, and it's so pertinent to us, of course, at this time, like when you have a big life change or even a little life change, how do you adapt to make it a positive? And I know you've had so many ways that you've reinvented yourself and grown, and so we can share that and sort of give some motivation to people. Sometimes change comes when you don't want it, like what just happened to us.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you want to change but you can't, and you need motivation.
Yeah.
Weigh in.
Welcome, Diane.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here. Thank you so much for that beautiful welcome and introduction too. And it's, for you to say that you see me as a change agent in ways. I mean, that's huge because I really consider myself like, you've been my teachers and my guides and my mentors for many years now. And I always see, it's so funny. It's like, I always see you as my trailblazers, I mean, if you're doing everything and it's beautiful to watch because you're teaching and you're writing books and you're creating, garments and beautiful. I mean, it's just amazing what you both do. And I was thinking about this morning because I wanted to give some thought about how we would move through the conversation. And I think the both of you are just about the most innovative and adaptive people I've ever had the pleasure to know. I mean, you're really mavericks in every way, shape, or form. So I'm so happy we're talking about this topic because I feel like, especially now where we're going through, I think, a lot of change collectively, and a lot of it is not comfortable. And it's in some ways quite frightening, and we're all going through this. It's been quite a year. So I can see this hour as being a therapy session for however it needs to happen.
well, and the host and the father of the whole Pulver network, Jeffrey, is the fulcrum that Archimedes wanted to move the world. In terms of change, Jeff, you've actually, I mean, Amy and I, we feel like we've changed the world. Everybody changes the world by interacting on a spiritual and kind way with other people. But you've changed the world in the sense that sort of what we're doing now, or talking over the internet, is because of your efforts. I mean, we'd be doing it, but we'd be paying money to the telecoms for doing it.
Look, it was thousands and thousands of people worked on technology that led to this moment that allows us all to work smoothly. But yes, I did have an intuitive hit in January of 2003 that the time was to go to Washington to stand up for the rights of the future, to save the future, and to ask for what became regulatory clarity that voice and by default video communication that starts on the internet that doesn't touch the legacy phone network for it not to be regulated. While it seems such a simple ask, it became a 1-year pleading process, which, by the way, in Washington is nothing. I mean, there are people who've been trying for 20, 30 years to pass laws to do things, and they never get acted upon. So the magic of making a wish, having it become a petition, and then in 10 days after being submitted, go out for public comment, and then literally a year later being passed and I became a subject down in Washington because of it. That's pure magic. And I do believe the way that the world evolved, that had we not had the protection of the Pulver Order, telecom for sure, over voice communications on the internet definitely would have been regulated real fast.
Yes,
And
without
video
question.
to follow. Now, unfortunately, in certain countries, video on the internet these days is being treated in a regulated way, even the free stuff. But in America and a bunch of other countries, it's still free. If you have broadband access, you could freely use video communication. So I
I think people don't realize that if it wasn't for you and like you said, the other people, that part of your phone bill would say, and here's how much you use the phone over the internet, and here's how much you use the video over the internet. And
so it's kind of true. It's hard. I'm humble about most of that. So it's like I don't tell people, but it is a true statement that that is true. And I'll throw this up for what I'm working on next week. It's the about vision, opportunity now. I'm looking at the future, literally, of everything, not just the internet. As far as where it's going, where it's evolving to, and it just blows my mind. But I was able to do the work I did back in the 2000s because I was hosting the original Von conference. And when I held events together, people of industry came together, the regulators came together. I mean, believe it was hard to fathom now, but the Federal Communications Commission came to my events to hold town hall meetings.
yeah,
They met with the lobbyists didn't really have a voice. They met directly with the entrepreneurs, and they wanted to learn, literally where the state of the technology was. And we look at innovation and growth. So I saw those opportunities. And it was just a matter of time to let people go look back and, you can talk about the vision about where it could be and people can believe on it. But when you could then see those dots connecting like stars in the night sky, and you start to understand that you're truly unbounded, you just have to believe. And I saw many dreams come through during the 11 years around the Von conference. A ton of companies, dreams got funded. Some companies got acquired, others went public, and the world changed. And we're in that sea of change again. Whether we like it or not, the way that we will use the internet in the years ahead is changing. And it's one of the things I'm looking to do is to cut out the tech talk and to help people who are on the internet today learn how to take advantage of the technologies in front of us. Unlike the other transition from what was the old internet, Web 1 to Web 2, which was pretty seamless because no one said, hey, it's Web 2, let's go with it. It just happened. But Web 3 has a lot of stumbling blocks, lots of friction, words that just pop up. And my attempt with this conference is to demystify the words that just stand there where we don't understand, and to force the people from the industry to speak in English, to actually talk, not tech talk, but talk in English, and to explain the words they use. And so innovation and growth, I'm on top of it. What I truly like though is the way we change our minds, the way we're allowed to have a vision and it can shift and it can grow, and we don't have to be stubborn about it. We can think that it could evolve in other ways, and the magic happens. Because in the field of tech, which I'll shut up in a second, but what bothers me so much is, while I love the words fear, greed, and disruption, because to me it's a sign of something amazing happen, those companies being disrupted, they do two things. They will go back in history and look for regulatory policy that's literally written in the 1800s if they have to stop the innovation from happening if that innovation is disruptive to their business. And number two, patent holders will go back in time and look for ways to keep things the way they used to be, for whatever reason, just because their legacy investment should pay off over the next 20 years, rather than this new stuff comes in and changes everything. And so I'm fighting, there are times when I'm out there pushing the technology forward while fighting the companies who want to hold on to their old stuff. And, you know, it may look seamless, but there's a lot of battles for people to open up and to embrace change. And it's hard. It is hard.
Well, I think a parallel to that is another example of the pandemic, where people wanted to go back to the way it used to be. And we know that's not going to happen at this point. I mean, it's pretty clear. So to embrace the change and to go forward without so much fear, even though there's fearful things thrown at us all the time. So to navigate that, I think you obviously, Jeff, weren't afraid to grow or weren't afraid to go into the future, you know, to take a step into the unknown. There's so much about that in the tarot, you know, that helps us on that journey, you know, to kind of read the energy, which is really what it's about. But I know in my personal life, things that have propelled me to change sometimes are very unpleasant, you know, some sort of crisis or a sickness. And for myself, having overcome certain things, I think those are my greatest accomplishments, you know, aside from any art or any books that I've done, you know, to overcome yourself, it's the greatest. And we're challenged to do that quite often.
Well, I've enjoyed very much watching Diane use the technology. And at the same, you know, it's funny you say we're your teachers, but, you know, we've never, with the exception of the online astrology class, which was like a blast, and Cara was part of that. I see her up there.
Which you did during the pandemic.
Which I did during the pandemic.
You changed.
Right.
You stepped into teaching.
No, but Diane, you've always been committed to growth. And I think that is the common denominator of everybody that's here today on Ask the Oracles, is we're committed to it. We know it doesn't always feel good.
Which not with being an oracle or using oracles, you're not afraid to see what the signs and symbols are telling you. You know, once you read that, you know how to kind of adjust your sails.
Right. I think that's so, yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I think your class, Monty, and you have another one coming up. Oh, and I wanted to welcome, I have some friends that came in today. I see Patty.
Oh, cool.
I feel like I'm in the magic mirror right now. I see Cole, I see Leah, I see Patty. If you're new to Ask the Oracles, if you don't mind, I want to invite you to put your names and links or whatever in the chat so you can meet everybody, because this group meets every week at this time. And it is literally, besides the Jeff Pulver classes online, it's the best deal on the internet going.
Yeah.
This is such a strong, beautiful community, and we learn so much from each other. But thank you, Monty. But when you taught that class, that was, to me, last year during that long winter, that class was the highlight of my week. I think we met on Monday nights, and for 6 months. And one of the things we can do, and it's, you know, everyone, it's up to you to decide if this feels right, but we can take those moments where we're in limbo or we're in bardo and we don't really know where we're going, to wrap your arms around the things that you are interested in, that you do feel passionate about. So that it was 3-month courses. So those 6 months, Monty, that was like an enrichment and that learning period. So what can we do in times of change? Well, in times of change, you can, you know, kind of plant some seeds, and that's where the growth comes from, right?
Yeah.
So
and
having those,
you know what they planted in, most things are planted in horse shit. So that's
exactly.
You know, fertilizer definitely is part of the process.
Exactly. And like, speaking of horse shit, you know, one of the things I grabbed before we did our session today was, you know, some of the cards in the tarot that speak of change, right? So like we can start, you know, with the suits. It's like, exactly, right? You've got the Death card and you've got Two of Pentacles, right?
Yep.
Well, the Two of Pentacles is everyday change. You know, maybe you want to change your hairdo.
Yeah, because it's the snakes shedding their skin.
Yep.
You know, that's why the snake is associated with Scorpio.
But as we know, death is profound change, and there's those times in life when, you know, it's a big letting go.
Yeah, and you know you're not coming back to the normal from that one.
Yeah, but new things come in. There's a rebirth involved with with that profound change.
I
And
love
that-
the spectrum of change we're talking about today, because it's going from the microcosm, of individual change all the way up to global change, which is what Jeff's been able to do and is talking about doing again.
Right.
But by doing the individual changes, there are the Pluto. Michelle Marie picked up Pluto,
Yeah.
which rules Scorpio and America. By the way, I don't want to be America centric, but we're having our Pluto return, which is every 240 something years.
Well, we can see so much change.
And-
You can't deny it.
And that is change or die. That's what anytime you see Pluto, like what Michelle Marie was holding up, the planet Pluto in astrology is just, it went from being a planet to all of a sudden, Carl Sagan or whatever that other guy's name is, because I get so mad when I think about it. It's not a planet anymore. But that's like telling my cat he's not a cat. Oh yeah, I'm going to shred you. That you don't tell Pluto is not a planet.
I think also just because I know, Diane, you have a lot of Capricorn, and everybody's got their individual chart and energy, so we all don't change at the same rate. Like Aquarians, they love like out with throw the baby out with the bathwater, kind of thing. Sudden
Right.
change. They like surprises. Some in
Right.
Taurus, it's like they cope and
Yeah,
cope and cope sometimes until they have to change.
Yes.
Aries always like something new, and kind of a thrust forward no matter what.
Yeah.
It's
And
in-
But
my
it's important to know what your energy is, because it's not going to be like someone else's.
Now,
Well,
so-
today-
exactly. And
today's
it's
a
powerful to know that part of yourself, to know that like what influences me. And if we have time, Manji, too, for those who aren't all that aware of astrology, maybe we can talk a little bit about the Pluto return, just so people understand and
Sure.
are prepared and not scared, as we say, right? To
Yeah.
understand what the hell is going on around here.
Well, I was just showing this, but today's a perfect day to talk about it, because I think that looks like Jeff Koons floating basketball is the
They might
planet.
not know who Jeff Koons.
Well, he's an artist that he's not my favorite artist, but he has a thing that's like a floating basketball. So this is Pluto and the sun. The sun is the dot in the center of the circle. Like that's your ego. It's like you being in the center. They're right together today. So it's a perfect time to talk about change. When Pluto comes back in a person's chart, they're dead a long time, because it takes 240 years. It doesn't come back in a person's chart.
Right.
But when it comes back in a country's chart and an empire's chart, the empire either ends or transforms. And with the United States, it might be the fact that we're going to admit that we're an empire and really bring truth, justice, and the whole Superman, beginning of the Superman show is going to, and the Pledge of Allegiance is going to have to be real. It's going to have to be real for everybody. Or else it's going to be, because when Rome went through its second Pluto return, it went from being a republic to an empire. Augustus was the Caesar, the first Caesar. And a lot of empires, like the Syrian Empire back in the day, they ended. So it's either transform or die.
Yeah.
So-
And on that note,
Well, because Pluto is power. I mean, power has a lot to do with it. Our personal power.
Yes.
And we feel powerless when there's so much big change around us. What can we do about it?
plus everyone's been forced to think about death with all the pandemic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Over to
How
you,
do you-
Jeff.
Jeff.
I've been on just the thing about change is sometimes you have to get out of your own way.
Yeah, for sure.
There's the whole thing about you understand change is happening, that you need to change, that you need to change your business, you need to change what you're doing, you need to change your habits, but finding the energy. So it's one thing to recognize that you are the change,
Yes.
but then to get out of your own way and facilitate that change to make it frictionless is one of the most difficult things we go through at times. And so it's recognizing it is hard, but doing it at times is even harder. And then having that ability to have the strength to go in and do what you need to do for yourself is one of those hardest things that you go through from time to time. And so it's not just the change, it's the implementation and the embracing and the acceptance, and then
Right.
putting together a plan so lets you embrace and be that change that you need to be.
And step by step, because of making
Yeah.
it too big is what inhibits people and what makes them procrastinate and
Right.
go into a fetal position.
Right. I'm thinking about doing a class. I'm not just thinking about it. I'm going to put it together in like a structured way, and I'm going to launch it because I want to talk about how we can humoring the tarot, and with, right? I mean,
Perfect for
right,
you,
guys?
yeah.
Right. And it'll come with adult diapers. So if you're watching it and you have to pee your pants, you don't have to leave the screen. But one of the things I find is that humor, especially in times of like, oh, I don't know, Pluto returns of a country where
Yeah.
you're like, this can't get any worse. Like, could it get any worse? And it's like,
Well,
spoiler
it could
alert,
always get worse.
it certainly can. It certainly sure can. So
Yeah.
I was like, so when I do these readings, like I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, like when I look at 10 of Swords, right? It's like 10 of Swords is like, okay.
We don't want to see 10 of Swords.
Right.
Right, exactly. So to me, I'm kind of like, it's like, I'm all right, like nobody worry about me. It's this feeling of like, because I have this really funny mug in my room and it's like 10 of Swords. It says, it's like, I'm fine. Because when this hits, the best news is that it can't get any worse. Whatever that lesson is, it can't get any worse in that moment. Of course, that's the micro, right? That's like the swords, the suits, the little stuff, the day-to-day stuff. But then when, the big kahuna shows up, the tower comes up, so it's like those ideas of like that archetypal. And I really feel in many ways that what the United States is going through in the world, but if we want to relate it to the Pluto return, it's like we're having a tower moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're having many moments. There's so many keys in the tarot that can share. Yes, it's a Two of Pentacles, it's a Two of Wands, it's everything. But that I really feel like we're all going through this collective tower moment. So how do we deal with that trauma? How do we deal with that? How do we deal with it? For me, one of the things is through humor. And it's not necessarily that this is funny, but there's something about humor that it's like, that adage where it's like, well, they can't take your soul from you, right? Like they can't take your soul. Humor is that essence of our spirit that cannot necessarily be taken away.
That's beautiful. I agree.
Yeah, I find that
We do that in this house.
I find
Absolutely.
that when I'm at my worst in terms of
Serious.
only Amy can handle being with me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because I've lost my sense of humor.
It doesn't happen very often.
Thank you, dear. Well, you know what Woody Allen said, funny is money.
Well, I think it's like taking a shower, it cleanses you. It shakes out all the bad stuff.
And for those of you who don't know the tower, the tower, you can think of, unfortunately, the World Trade Center. The tower means something that you have counted on your whole life or for the longest amount of time is not there. It's gone. It's the profound change of something that is of the collective.
But it's necessary to make way for new attitude, new approach, newness in your life. It's out with the old and in with the new.
Right.
But there's that transition time when it's so uncomfortable and scary and sad, and the crisis has hit. When I see that card in a reading, sometimes I see it as a breakup. If it's a relationship, it's like, and we know people prolong the agony. They know the change has to be, sometimes with divorce or with taking care of their health until it gets really bad. It's when you do something about it. I mean, that's human nature. Sometimes we try to do preventative things, before it gets to that point. And that's very helpful, to learn about reading the energies. That's also astrology really helps with that, to see what cycles are coming up so you can prepare and tap into strengths that you have to compensate for those times. So, and you've always been banging on about making your base secure during these times, which really helped us. And I know a lot of people that have followed your advice.
Well, because people don't want to change. I mean, that's the subject of what we're talking. I now with Zane gone,
Unless it's forced on you.
I feel like the philosopher with a toothache. You have all these great philosophies, and then you get the toothache. It's just like, fuck, all that philosophy is bullshit. I'm in pain. How do I get rid of this pain?
Yeah.
But Carl said something, if you laugh at yourself first, no one can use it against you. That's true. And we got to tap into the fool energy, says Trudy. I mean, you know, that's what's so great about being, and plus this kind of arrangement. I mean, that's why I got to really thank you and Lauren and Harry, Jeff, for having this life-saving show. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't have this life-saving show, because it saved our life during the pandemic.
It's true. It's such a beautiful ritual.
It's a beautiful ritual, and it's also provided a place for people to connect and to feel and to have community. And it's really one of those things that has evolved in a positive way, is the ability for us to all connect. It doesn't matter where we are in the world. Distance really did die, right? It doesn't matter
Yeah, I love that.
where we came from. Even if you are neighbors in the Hamptons, it doesn't matter. We have folks who join us as guests from all over the world, and as well as, you know, people who tune in. And it's so in that type of world where we're always connected, you know, we do need others. We do need the connectivity. We need the people, and the ability to just freely be open and to connect is a blessing. So I thank you for listening when I offered the idea, because I think it's certainly a collective experience, which without the help of Lauren and Harry, I couldn't do it.
Exactly.
Without us, you know, saying yes, we couldn't do it. And but the benefit of being an anchor for other people too doesn't go unnoticed, right? And I appreciate the openness, the people I've met, the people who we talk with, and it's also it's both change and growth, right? Because we didn't have it before. You had your community in different ways. You knew people who were buying your products, but maybe you didn't get to see them often. And now we have that opportunity to bridge the distance gap and be inspired. I mean, you know, your upcoming class you're giving, Monty, on
True crime.
true crime, right?
Yeah. I just like to say to everybody who's joining us now that the start time has been moved to noon. Maybe it was not the best idea I ever had, because I see a lot of people are coming in at the old 12:30 time.
You know, talking about this show, I guess it's been a year and a half. People have shared so many of their life changes with us. Some people have moved great distances, and we helped them make that decision. Some people have lost dear friends. I know you and Lauren lost your mom.
Yes.
So many personal sharings, you know, over the last year and a half, which we really appreciate. It just shows the universal issues that we all deal with, and all the chapters that we go through, and kind of helps, you know, being a cheerleader, that people can make life changes in their lives. I find sometimes people think they have to choose, you know, which change, you know, should I do this or that? Our big thing is like, do them both.
Right. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things we felt Zane kept saying, and I know it sounds odd. And
Yeah, he wants us to get to work.
He kept saying, get to work. You know, which I guess it's the only way you can get through grief is, you know, just get to work and get distracted.
So,
and
I don't know if everyone heard that Monty started channeling Zane, our cat.
a little bit. I don't know if it's me or what.
Because that's what he did when my mom died in 1996, because I was so bereft. So my sweet husband started channeling my mother for us. And anyhow, it made him so psychic. So talk about change. You're always willing to jump in feet first. You're not afraid of change.
I think it comes from my past life as a gladiator. As long as you're not trying to cut my head off with a sword, I can handle it. You know, as long as you're not trying to stab me or something, you know, okay, it's, you know, you're making fun of me, fine. But you know, the thing with Amy's mother, when I started channeling it, because you feel stupid because you got to say what you get, and you hear all kinds of weird things. Amy's grandmother, Amy's mother's mother, was alive and living with us.
She corroborated.
And she would say, how do you know these things? Because she'd tell us stuff we didn't know, and we'd ask Amy's grandmother about it. But anyway, so I'm still not sure that it's accurate. I just want to show people, because there's a big change on the horizon. Oh my God. I don't know how this translates into Vedic astrology, but check this out. See this thing that looks like headphones? That's the north node of the moon. And you see it's at 0 degrees, that 2 is Gemini, and it's always retrograde. The thing that looks like prescription is retrograde. So the north node of the moon is where the ecliptic, in other words, you project the equator out into space, meets the orbital plane of the moon. And when that's where eclipses happen, is at the nodes of the moon. When you see a new moon or a full moon near the eclipses, near these headphones, you know there's going to be an eclipse. But they're retrograding back into Taurus, which looks like a little bull. That's Taurus. And that's a big deal. Doesn't happen very often. It happens every few years. And when it goes through, so the reason I'm mentioning is we're talking about change. This is
Right.
going to be a big change.
Like how do you read it?
Well, Gemini is an air sign. It's all about duality. It's all about
Ideas.
ideas. And the opposite, you know, the headphones worn under the chin, which I used to make fun of, but now that's how people wear them, especially young people. So I can't do that anymore. You know, I used to say, oh,
You
yeah,
had to change, right?
yeah, there's a change, right? But so it's in 0 degrees Sagittarius. So it's going to go into Taurus and Scorpio. And we already talked about Pluto and Scorpio and transformation and change and da, 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 da. And Scorpio is all about change. Scorpio welcomes change. Scorpio bathes in change, and Taurus never wants anything to change. So
I'm
that's
sure
what's
there's
gonna
some
be,
out there.
right?
Some of you.
Diane,
Taurus
Diane,
rising, yeah. I'm Taurus rising, so I get that. I'm like, oh, no, nobody move.
Yeah,
my
but Diane,
keys.
you're so disciplined. Like you know, you're a yoga teacher. That takes a lot.
yeah, when we met you,
It
you were a
takes a lot
yoga
of
teacher.
commitment.
You were a yoga teacher, but you didn't know the tarot and all this other stuff.
At all. I know. I kept sniffing around your doorstep, and it was like, I'll never forget those days, Monty, when I'd walk in and I'd come into the store you had in East Hampton. And after about, a few minutes, we'd start chatting. Then I guess you started to realize, oh my God, she's not leaving. And then you'd go in the back and make some espresso, and we'd sit there and chat, and I'd rub my fingers all over Amy's clothes. Like, oh my God. But no, you met me at a time in my life when the shit was about to hit the fan.
Oh,
And it was like, I feel like on New Year's Eve, I decided we stayed in. We didn't do anything on New Year's Eve. We were just, laying low. And I figured, how about this for something, to do as we welcome in the new year? So I wrote down everything that had happened in the previous decades that I could remember, like big changes. And when I started to realize and write down all of the changes I've been through, you think to yourself, when something new comes through, you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to handle it. When we look back at what we've been able to survive, it's like, okay, I think I have a pretty good track record, right? I know I'm not going to last forever, but that adaptability, I think it's that essence to want every living thing wants to live. Every living thing wants to breathe.
yeah.
So right away, it's like if you put your finger in front of an ant, that ant turns around he's like, whatever. He's not digging whatever's going on, obstructing his motion. And I feel like human beings are very much like that. So we are complex creatures. And I think getting to know ourselves is so important. And I think this pandemic has really forced many of us to look at the shadow aspects of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that we've been repressing, but also to celebrate, once we've gone through really difficult things, to celebrate where we've come from. And it's that sort of renewed joie de vivre. It's like that renewed sense of, I want to live.
Yes.
That's a very beautiful way of putting it. And
right.
We can't deny the magic, right? That happens so much, that is a catalyst for change. I know it's happened to me so much when I was kind of dabbling and creating clothes for myself. And then I ran into an old friend who was a shopper at Bergdorf Goodman. She said, I have to show my buyer this. I had no plan for this. It changed my life profoundly. I've been at Bergdorf Goodman for 20 years now. But it was just that magic moment that became an epiphany, a life changer. I think people come into our lives that way, when we need it. And all of a sudden, an opportunity presents itself. So are you going to grab that opportunity or be afraid to take the opportunity?
Yeah, because I remember the first time Amy was asked to come into the dressing room with a tape measure to measure a woman at Bergdorf's. She didn't know what she was doing. No offense, but she did it.
I mean, I always will tell people that when opportunity knocks, you have a choice, right? You could either you open, the damn door, or you don't. But and when you start each day, it's like you walk out. If you were to leave your house, do you choose to walk down Luck's way, harm's way, or no way? So if you don't leave, you're really not going to be yourself on that path. And so when you take a journey with intention of following your intuition, I find that that's a journey worth taking.
You're right.
And when you feel that opportunity to deny it, I mean, opportunity knocks but so many times, right? And if you constantly say no, 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 don't necessarily think that it's going to come around yet again and offer you a chance to say no again, because it gets smarter about that. So,
Right.
I've looked to embrace opportunity, and it's the challenge of being online with opportunity is when people approach you. Like, I don't always know whether or not it's a real opportunity or not, whether it's an opportunity to be helpful. I will do, but like on certain platforms, people look to I'll call it what it is, a brain suck. People want information.
A vampire.
Between spending, charging people for your time and being paid for it and being polite and helping someone out, but and I get caught in between, because if I say no to people, then it's like I'm being aloof. If I say yes to people, then I'm a sucker because I'm being pulled in. And if I were to ask to be paid for my time, which I do ask, I offend people unnecessarily. And so I find a balance where it works, but it's, it is it's a challenge how to find a balance between being taken advantage of and not being kind and not being silly, and being there for the opportunities as they're in flow, right? So I do find that when I'm in sync with things, the opportunities work much better, and I can't force it. That's the other thing about opportunity. You don't force it. You don't force change. And I don't force the opportunities, but if you're present for them and you're aware of what's happening, it is magical.
The hockey player Wayne Gretzky says, he's quoted as saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the fact that I took the opportunity to take a job that was, I could have said, beneath me, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet him and wear his ring, one of his Stanley Cup rings, for a few months after he gave it to Michael J. Fox when I was his bodyguard, because I was given the opportunity to be what's called a production assistant, which is basically a coffee getter.
Which you didn't even know what it was.
No, but I was helping Amy on one of her art shows in a local gallery
years ago, like in 1982.
Yeah, and another husband came up and said, you work really hard. You want to be a production assistant? And I was giving up drugs at the time, stopping being a musician. And, when I found out what it was, it's kind of like, here I had my own band with all these people that went on to run bands for Whitney Houston and Billy Joel. But still, I took the job and
changed your life.
Changed my life. I worked in the movie business, became a location scout, location manager, and then a bodyguard. And it's all because I said yes to something that was, quote, beneath me.
You don't always know when you take the opportunity how you're going to do it, if you can do it, what's going to come from it. I think sometimes people overthink these kind of decisions, that has to be the perfect decision. But basically, we're all about intuition. So your gut says yes, big yes, or your gut says big no.
Right.
But you were saying, Diane, how many things we've done because we say yes to the opportunity.
Right. Yeah, the first rule is take the job, and then after that you figure out how to do the job.
I've done that before many, 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 many times.
That's why you are who you are. But that's the whole reason. And Jeff too, and that's why we're all having this conversation today, is because we are the people that say yes.
Well, it's fun to figure out. It's fun to take the challenge. And that's what makes you grow. If you did the same thing all the time, you wouldn't grow. Sometimes people ask me if I make a sketch, before I make a tapestry. I don't, because that would be boring to me to know what it was going to look like. So I kind of, jump in.
Yeah, it's like asking Amy that question is like asking a skydiver to use a ladder.
Actually, it's like asking me what my talk is going to be about before.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Which I admire. I couldn't do that, but we all have our specialties.
Well, that's the fun, Some people, the roller coaster is different for everybody. And sometimes the roller coaster sucks, like the one we've been on lately.
Yes.
Because it's the same roller coaster, but
we've learned from it. And I'm sure one thing I know that's grown is our hearts, because when you have a big loss, it makes your heart bigger.
Yeah.
And then you can understand other people's loss.
Yeah. And being of service in those times of personal crisis. And I'm not saying ignore what's going on, and focus only on other people's problems, right? So you don't have to deal with your own. But there's that beautiful opportunity too, like when things really are painful when we are of service to others in some way, shape, or form. To me, that feels like such a healing balm, and to be of service can be stepping out of, your comfort zone and doing something you've never done before. But it's like, oh, they need some help down at the nonprofit organization or whatever, checking people in, or right, that kind of stuff. But that to me has been great medicine when I've been, because I feel like we've all been forced into this, into what's going on right now. None of this was our choice, right? This pandemic. Nobody said, sign me up for this, right? So we're all, yeah, exactly. So, right, exactly. Except maybe Steve Martin and the Jerk. You know what I mean? Like, who I love, but like, I'd follow him anywhere, obviously.
He hates these cans.
Yeah, he hates these cans.
One of the funniest movies ever. Yes.
Oh my God, The Jerk. Everyone should see it.
That is medicine. So people who have been going through these rough times, I've been, prescribed. Literally, I said to somebody who's going through I said, go watch Steve Martin in The Jerk. It is literally medicine for the soul. Because when we turn our attention outside of ourselves, it really can heal us. And I feel like the Ask the Oracles, first of all, it's accessible to everybody. It's an hour, it's every week. And this to me has been like, I don't know if you see it this way, but I see this as an incredible give back in many ways of your, 5 decades of plus of experience. This is a healing community.
Oh my God, when
Definitely.
we wake up and we realize that we're in the middle of this and who we've become, it's a pleasure. And Jeff, that's another aspect of change and embracing transformation. It's not like you're thinking, oh, look how I've changed. But at a certain point, you're like, wow.
I handled this differently than I would have 20 years ago,
Right.
or I didn't get pissed off like I used to, or whatever it is.
Or I don't have my car rigged up to be a ham radio anymore, but
But in many aspects of my life, it's all about communication. It's all about connecting the dots. It's just the dots we connect are different. In the 80s, when I did rig up my car to be like a telephone, so I did mobile telephony before it was cool to do so. Which is hard to remember, but it was like 1980. I used my ham radio, my 2-meter radio, to connect to my house, using the airwaves to give me dial tone, which was a big thing. At least I thought it was. And although every time I tried to demonstrate it, no one really thought it was cool, but I did. And it was, because I invite people to my car to see what anyway, forget it.
But did you, Jeff, did your parents encourage you?
They didn't stop me. I mean, my parents helped. They were kind enough to help invest in my antennas that I had at my house and the equipment.
Oh, that's nice.
Going to college, I mean, I did manage to. There were two things I did. There was they didn't say no, so by saying yes, I had the opportunity to do a few things. Because while I was going to college, I also helped design we used an Apple II, I think an original Mac II at the time. I helped innovate my parents' HVAC system, and we automated the way that the house was working, all computer driven. It was really crazy. It was a fun science experiment. So I was doing that on the house side, but the impact of mobile telephony, it would take years later for people to appreciate having that type of mobility. Because back when I was doing it, cell phones were like this big, they weighed a ton, and you couldn't go too far with them. And I just, was just having fun with it. And so it was crazy, but there's been that element or that need to bridge people together to connect the dots. And so now, all these years later, with shows like this, where we have an audience and we have each other, being able to freely communicate, feels like I'm serving a similar purpose, a different way, but to be there, to be accessible, and to be able to listen. That's really pretty, and it's the clarity here is much better than I ever had on the radio, and there's very little.
And you don't have to drill through the walls of your car also.
Well, I think also you were following your passion, which we talk a lot about on this show. And I think when you follow your passion, the doors open and you're more open to opportunities, and, magic happens, and you're not so digging in your heels, when change comes. I think the change that comes when you're following your passion, usually it's the right change.
Diane, you're doing a reading?
I am writing. I'm furiously taking notes. Furiously taking notes.
You're always taking notes.
Always
cool.
taking notes. Mercury and Capricorn. Am I never not paying attention
Me
and
too.
trying to like,
Auntie's got that too.
right? It's like voracious, like desire for knowledge, you know? It's
Yes.
like I can't, and being precise about it too.
Yeah.
But you know what I was thinking about too is that, you know, change is inevitable, unfortunately, right? So one of the mantras I like to think about, and I mean, when I say unfortunately, sometimes we want the change, right? It's like we're going through a hard time.
No,
like, please get
we're
us
all
out of it.
about unfortunate change in this house lately.
100%, right, exactly. So, you know, change will happen. So there's a great mantra that I think about sometimes, which is celebrate impermanence. So learning how to celebrate that which is impermanent, which is literally everything, probably, except maybe our soul, right? If we think about that way, like the soul will carry on. So that's one thing to hold on to. And then the other is that change will happen, but growth is not guaranteed. So I feel like growth is it's our commitment to being present with the change, right? Because people can experience change, but they may not grow.
They might run. They might try to escape.
Regress or something
or blame,
implode, right?
Yeah.
So growth, I think growth is the thing that takes our commitment in some way, or at least our mindfulness to be able to grow. Some people, maybe growth happens by proxy because that's just their luck or their blessing or how they're built. But for me, I feel like there have been times during the harder times in my life where I really had to apply myself in order to grow, because the change was there no matter what. Does that make sense?
You got all that Capricorn and Taurus, so you know how to apply yourself.
Yeah,
Yes.
Taurus has a sign. Every sign has its, the spectrum of meanings. The great thing about Taurus is they're strong and they want to show you how strong, and sometimes they want to show you themselves how strong they are, so they'll endure something that everybody else is like, fuck, I'm out of here.
I would have been
100%. 100%. I know, exactly. It's like, why am I hitting myself? Why am I hitting myself? It's
God, and especially if you have Moon in Taurus and conjunct Jupiter in Taurus, we know a few people like that. They would rather fight than switch. They would do anything rather than admit the fact that it's time to move on. So, I mean, that I think that's one of the things that have facilitated your spectacular tangential, logarithmic growth, is the fact that you got into tarot and astrology but you used it and you went with it and you used it in a great way. Well, and now you have clients, you're helping people all the time. I mean, you always were, you were a yoga teacher.
That's a very exciting change, because when I was young and discovered the tarot and astrology, oh my God, how that's life-changing. Creating our own deck, that's life-changing, because it's everything in life is there. If you're interested in people, if you're interested in psychology, if you're interested in growth, I mean, those are key.
And you wake up one day and things have changed. Someone just sent us a book that we're a part of. It's a book. I still can't believe it exists. It's a book designed for everybody who wants to make their own oracle.
We're going to have Stephen on.
And we're going to have Stephen Bright on. He's the author of it. And it's I mean, think about that. Here's Amy and I back in the day do karma cards. What's karma? Nobody knew what karma was.
Or an oracle.
And now there's a real big publisher who thinks there's a real big market for something that's teaching everybody to make Jeff, we should send you a copy of that book because you're doing your own oracle.
I doesn't want to, because everyone else.
Right, exactly. He's moved on. No, but you know what I'm saying? And so we have the creativity oracle. We should bundle them together, because the creativity oracle is designed to help anybody who's trying to be a creative. So I guess we thought also that there was a market.
No, I have the entrepreneurial oracle deck. That's the deck I'm doing.
That's right.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. And
keep it to yourself,
because you have the ethos. You have the ethos behind that. Because we say from the authors of Karma Cards and the Enchanted Tarot, you could say from the Pulver of the Pulver doctrine that changed your goddamn life.
From the father of the internet.
Well, no.
From one of the founding fathers of the internet.
All right. My friends are the folks that helped make the internet happen back in the 60s. I would be their son or grandson at this point. but
Okay.
I do know them. People do make me the I'm not the father of voiceover IP because again, I didn't invent the technology, but I used it. I found ways to apply it that they never thought about, which is also when you think about growth and opportunity, is when you stumble upon something and you redirect it or you reconnect the dots in a way that was never assembled before. That could take old things and make it new again and create those opportunities that that others never saw. That's really been my specialty, is because while I was passionate to communicate since I was very young, when I entered the internet world of the commercial internet, I came from, after having a software company for 7 years, working on financial calculations, working on Wall Street, and the fact that I was labeled as a hobbyist by all these members of the press trying to talk me down because of it was me as the computer communications enthusiast that launched Free World Dial-Up in 1995, which ended up being the first phone network on the internet. No one who worked at a phone company would possibly launch a service where you had free phone calls. So it took an outsider to do so. And I think it's the power of the outsider is sometimes undervalued, because coming out from being an outsider, I had no legacy to worry about, and I could be disruptive and have a lot of fun. And I did.
Yeah, but I think Michelle Marie and Diane and all the astrologers out here, we have to come up with what planet rules snatching a juicy thing that the giant corporations want to make a fortune on out of their mouth before they know it even happened. Because that's basically what you did. I'm serious. It could say on your phone bill, how much internet, instead of getting it on your phone, you'd get it on your bill. And you ripped that out of their little claws when they were trying to do it. Jupiter. Okay. I love it. Okay.
So Jupiter's in Pisces now. That's very spiritual. And so I think, spirituality is the key to accepting change, to wanting to grow spiritually. It's key. And we all have our private personal practices, that keep us leveled up and keep our frequency high when we need to, traverse difficult situations. But say we've all been in this 2-year
14 days to flatten the curve.
big change. So what, Jeff, you're always stressing creativity, and so are we, with our creativity oracle and get creative. That's how we're dealing with the loss of Zane. Monty's going to write a book about him. He's learning to channel him. I mean, you have to transform it into something that can feed your soul and heal your heart.
And am I fooling myself? Maybe. Who gives a shit? If it makes me feel better, what's the big deal? And I think that if there's one common if there's one common denominator about all the people that are here watching Ask the Oracles, is I think either you're the kind of person who says, who gives a shit, I'm going to do it anyway, or you want to be that kind of person. Because if you want to be that person, you've come to the right show, because you're either you're going to die or you're going to move forward. That one way or another, you're going to move forward backward, or you're going to move forward.
On that, Diane, closing words.
This has been once again, I feel like every time we all get together, there is growth and change.
Yes.
So I think a lot of it too is to surround yourself with those agents of positive change. This is not about positive vibes only. It's not about denying the hardness of life.
Right.
It's about surrounding yourself with people who are committed to being with themselves, being mindful of themselves, and being part of this fabric. And I think that makes a big difference. So creating and being part of these communities is just a little pro tip for you there.
That's good. I like that.
Monty and Amy?
Over to you.
Just be open. Be open. Be a free spirit. Let your heart soar. Feel the feelings.
Yeah. Don't deny the feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
And it'll be okay. You got to keep going. And Jeffrey?
Well, hey, I just say change is inevitable. Growth isn't. But when we can embrace both of them, it is magical. And I want to dedicate today's show to the memory of Zane. And I thank everyone for coming today. I wish much love and light to all, especially to Amy and Monty. And thank you for sharing your love with them. And Laura and Harry, thanks for what you do.
Thanks, Lauren and Harry. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Carl. I love it.
If it's Mondays, it's time for.
Ask the
Ask the
oracle.
oracles.
The third thumbs up is for Zane.
Thank you, everybody.